here we are at once again another special edition of the Musicians Insider. I'm, as always, your host Kronis, and today we have Chance LaBrie, and we are actually in front of his drum set, and we're in a really great place where we can talk about music quietly and whatever else we need to. I'd love you to introduce yourself to my audience a bit and tell them a little about yourself and what you do and why we would want to talk to you and what you can tell some of our audience.
For sure, man. I'm Chance LaBrie from the band Falset. I'm a drummer. We've been doing this now since high school, and we just dropped our debut album last October. Things are finally starting to happen for us. We're trying to get out on the road in the States and working on our second album right now. But yeah, it's great to finally sit down with you, man. Like, we've been trying to do this for a long time now. So
yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, it's great.
I think this is going to be really interesting because I don't know where it's going to go.
No, me neither.
Take it where we can. However, the Musicians Insider is actually all about, it's not about my record. It can be about what you've done with your record to help our fans and our followers and our supporters understand what they can do to help with their records. So the idea is to come across, like, what are some of the things, because I know you've toured more than I have, and I've been doing this for a long time, but you were on the road with, was it Trivium, or you were on, was it Warped Tour?
So we played Warped Tour, but it was actually just the Toronto date. We just got on the Toronto date, so we didn't even tour that tour.
Okay.
The only tours we have done are just like little runs across Ontario. The only tours I've been on outside of Canada have all been with Dream Theater, either just there hanging out with my dad, or the one time I was actually the meet and greet coordinator and managing all of that for them. So that was a really cool experience all throughout South America. But every other time has literally just been me on the road with my dad. So that's why we're so looking forward to this next chapter of Falset. We're looking at agencies right now and trying to sort all that out with our manager. And we really want to get into the States because, like everyone knows, that's where shit happens, right?
Okay, well, here's where I think I can help you. So what's interesting is I moved to the States in 2004 or so, but I actually moved to California in 2007, May 15th. I remember that day. My dad and I drove across the US, actually. It was pretty epic, and I'm really happy I got to do that. One of the things, though, is when I sign up for, like, digital music services in the States, like, I got into iHeartRadio US, but I was having trouble getting my music into iHeartRadio Canada. So, like, everyone else is having a hard time getting it the other way around.
Yeah.
But since I've been down there for so long doing things, I found that it was really interesting that can happen. And things like Pandora, you can get into Pandora from here, but how do you do it? Well, you can use a VPN.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can't even listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to this amp.pandora.com where they have this thing where you can actually, it's like their artist sort of area. But because of the pandemic, I was going into these little Zoom calls with guys who are running them, the playlists and whatnot. And I actually got added to a couple playlists, which I was then able to show, hey, I got 2,000 plays on Vibe and Me before it came out or whatever, just because I put it in a little thing. And I did release it and then unrelease it. And I was able to use those numbers to help show, look at this traction.
Yeah, it helps for the pitches, right?
Totally. And like, to do that, you really need to, like, get into the trenches and meet people that can help you.
Dude, and that's like one thing, like, if I have any advice for anyone, it's like, you can't wait until you're putting out stuff that's like 10 out of 10. It's perfection, right? Like, the best way to do it is to build that little foundation, and you use that to then pitch and grow and build a team, right? There's so many people out there that are like, they're working on this and they're in this music industry. They're trying to get into it, and their idea of that, the best way to do that is in their mind is to write the best song or write the best album. And it's like, cool, like, good job, like, good luck, but like, maybe just like drop shit, like, just put content out, like, put music out there and grow from that. One day you will write that perfect song. Well, but don't wait for that to start dropping stuff.
And it's interesting. I just had a really interesting conversation with Karen Bliss from the previous podcast, and we were talking about, she was saying how great the song needs to be. And I'm thinking along your lines where when you have the best song in the world, like, you got to make great content. And that's a big thing. A lot of people don't. They're trying to push it everywhere. If it sucks, they don't want to hear it. The journalists don't want to hear it. But what I'm saying is, if you have the best song in the world, say you manage to time travel back and you know this was a big hit, so you come back in time and you're going to release it like the Beatles Yesterday's movie or something weird, just as an example. What do you do with that music, right? What is the way to get it out if it's so great? Like, so I was almost going to say, like, if you jumped on your drum kit right now and played something and then I was like singing along with it or doing something, and we chopped that up and threw it on TikTok and had the right hashtags, that could blow up. That could blow up and get more views because it might be timely or interesting, you know?
And going off of that, like, we could go back in time and have the whole Black album and release it before them, and we were at the wrong place at the wrong time and it didn't blow up. But it's like the Beatles and everything, like they're so talented, and it was talent and great songs also mixed with luck of being at the right place at the right time. So it's not like you have to have the best song, you have to, you know, have everything mapped out. It's like right place, right time. So the way I look at it is just fucking make that right place, right time happen. The only way you can make it happen is if you're putting stuff out there.
And I was pretty upset with one of the awesome program directors, Kat Thompson. She's amazing, from 106.9 The Bear in Ottawa. I think she's no longer there. I think the station's been gone for a long time. But I used to be upset because I was so mad at Nickelback, and that's why I will rag on Nickelback. But in honesty, we were pretty much jealous of them because they took the slot that everyone wanted. And I don't want to get too far into Nickelback because I know a lot of people respect them and I will talk shit about them. But it was so awful for me when they said to us, and then Kat said to me, maybe this just isn't the right timing for you guys. And she was 100% right. And I learned,
just hard to hear,
that the timing is everything from that. And it was more along the lines that I kind of got a hard learning lesson from that. But I have nothing bad to say about any of the bands I've been in or any of the people I've worked with, unless someone like stole from me. And even when that happens, I'm still like, you know, trying to keep it on the positive side, because the best advice I have for everyone is be nice to everyone. If someone's mean to you, then take note, but don't be vindicative. Like, don't be vindicating, or whatever the word is. You know, don't really do too much retaliatory stuff, because other people will see that and then they'll think, like in hockey, like you get the penalty for instigating, but you might not have been the one who did that.
Right, exactly.
It's almost like, just be nice to everyone and make sure that people understand what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
And if you don't know what you're trying to do, then get out and play and do as many things as you can, collaborate, meet a lot of other artists. And like, who knows, like Falset is your first real band.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, I'm looking on the wall at Winter Rose and these other bands, those weren't Dream Theater.
No.
So Falset may be your Dream Theater, but it may be your Winter Rose.
Yeah.
Who knows where you're gonna
go.
Well,
it's funny you say that, because like when I started this band, like I obviously wanted it to, you know, go all the way with it, but I never actually thought that what I would be doing after high school and like into my 20s would be still the same band I started when we were like 14, 15 years old.
Is it the same band?
Yeah, it's just still like the original three. So me, Braden Cozy, and Zach Copeland.
But so it's already had a bit of changes, which shows you already how fucked up the music industry can get. And egos get in the way.
Oh yeah.
Girlfriends, guitars, songs that people write, like
just sucking at what you do gets in the way.
And like, so let me ask you, so how do you handle the splits? And you don't have to tell me your actual splits. That's obviously something personal, but you're welcome to tell us if you split 4 ways.
Well, yeah, no,
man.
So when I was like young, like I used to like pick my dad's brain about the music industry like crazily, because I was just so fascinated by it, and I knew I wanted to do it from a really young age. So me and my dad got into conversations about this even before I was in a band, and he told me like horror stories about like Queen and stuff. Like they used to do it like whoever writes the most gets paid the most, right? And that like really brought them and a lot of other bands to this really like turmoil like point where they almost broke up, and they switched it up after that so that everything is even, and that's the way most bands do it nowadays. And you know, after hearing all those stories, I was just like, yo, like if I'm in a band, that's the way it's got to be. So you know, it's evenly split throughout the whole band, and that's because like even if someone is writing more, everyone has their role in the band. It's not all about the fucking songs, like, you know, there's the songs, and then there's all of this other work that goes into being in a band. So just because like Zach in our band, right, he writes like the demos and he writes the foundation of our songs, doesn't mean that he's going to get 80% of the royalties for the songs, because he knows and he values what me and everyone else in the band does for Falset.
Now, you know, the definition by SOCAN or ASCAP, it is lyrics and melody are 50%, and then there's music and arrangement, it's the other 50%. So you have to be aware of that, though, and you have to have that kind of on right. Like, you have to take the songs and put them into SOCAN and put them 25% each, and then you wonder, well, how does the publishing work? Right? So you need to have that conversation.
It's so in depth, man.
So what I did with my producer friend is I just told him up front, you're getting this amount for every song, and I want to be free to work with you and feel like we're not going to think about that. And that's all we did. We just have the same split for every song.
Right.
And I'm very pleased with it. And there might be somewhere I did more and there might be somewhere I did less, but the only times it gets confusing is I have this real need to get songs out and finished that I feel were unfinished. Or I had a song called Gone and I redid it, So Gone. And it's out now, and I'm really happy with the final version. Like, as I mentioned on one of the other podcasts, is I played the guitar solo live from that song a certain way, and I added all these embellishments. Well, when I recorded it again, all those embellishments are on the solo. So when I play it live, I play it identical to the record, because it's the new way.
Right.
And maybe I'll change a few things. It's always good to have, moments in your live show that are a little different.
Yeah, definitely. But like extending parts out or changing intros.
And yesterday I worked with AJ, best tech ever. I'm gonna try and get him on here. I recorded just some different click tracks with him, but for Million Miles Away, one of my songs, we put the intro. I listened to that one. The intro is kind of slow, and then it goes punk, like so how do you count that in with the intro, and the clicks weren't where they needed to be, so we actually added a space there. And then the click comes in and then you start. So now it's a moment in the live show. And
we're working on a new song right now. Sorry to interrupt, but we're working on a new song right now that before the band comes in, the guitar is just playing like sort of like the chorus vibe, and it's just playing it like slower, not to a click, just like vibey, right? And I'm like already thinking, I'm like, how the fuck are we gonna do that live?
Well,
like, are we gonna play that live?
In your head, if you're the drummer, you're gonna get a 1, 2, 3, 4 at some point, and then that's when it starts. So how do you cue the guitar player? Is he gonna sing, or does he doesn't care because he's just doing that in the ears? You get the 4 count.
There's lots to work out. Because
I like to try to get rid of the. Right. So, but one thing you can also do with if everyone's wearing headphones or in ears is
we're all on click now.
So then you can just have like instead of just a click in your ear, you can actually say 1, 2, 3, 4.
We do that. Like I talk to the guys. I'm like, guitar switch. I'm like, Chance, you're playing this song now. I'm like, dude, I cheat sheets all throughout our fucking clicks, man.
Kiss. So my friend was a guitar tech for Kiss, and he told me that Gene Simmons has 2 talkback like channels, and one is to talk to the techs and people, and then the other one is someone feeding him the lyrics.
Dude, how I've heard people do that. So how the hell does that work? They're feeding you the lyrics and you're listening as you sing.
Like an anchor at a news show. It's like they have in their ear, they're hearing the producer telling them, okay, you just said something that's not true. You have to correct yourself. Like that's what they're getting corrected all day long. News anchors on the TV
but they're
shows.
sort of like, they have a second to be like,
no, they don't.
They
don't do that.
But singing, they don't do that, right?
Well, they just listen, and the people that are feeding them the information know when to do it because they've done this in rehearsal. Like, you know how bands rehearse for 2-3 weeks before they tour for real.
Yeah.
Not like anyone else of us. Like me, first show I do at the Horseshoe is basically our first rehearsal live, and like all these people are coming to see us.
I can't do that, man.
Oh,
I can't do
that up and learn that lesson pretty hard.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of glad I didn't make it when I wanted to make it, because I think now I'm ready to do it the right way.
Right.
But so much learning, right? So what I want to do is provide as much of feedback from mistakes I've made so that my audience can learn from my mistakes and skip those steps.
That's cool.
And I think you have a unique perspective because you have a successful parent in the industry who can pass down stuff that really no one else can that isn't successful in the industry. They can all be like, oh, I know this and that. But even stuff he knows is going to be like, changing all the time. And it's also common sense.
Yeah.
So you really just have to be smart, be nice to everyone. And like, I appreciate that. And it's hard to really explain a lot of the stuff that you just have to learn by doing. I've been through the ringer. I had like a VH1 behind the music story and haven't had the success at all. Hopefully this record does well. But like now I feel like how can it not? You know, we're ready to go, everything's done, and I've never been happier. But there's nothing worse than finishing an album and feeling like it's not quite what you want.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that happens when there's 4 guys and the one guy didn't get to sing. Like in ThermoCline, my first band from 2000, I remember bringing that to you when you guys lived somewhere else. I brought that press kit to your dad and said, hey, this is us. And he gave it to Electra for me. I was rad. But the thing was, there's choruses on that album where I drove from 4 hours from Ottawa back to Toronto, and I was working on the chorus the whole way home, and I got back to the studio. They recorded it without me. Like, I was just helping to write a part, and they asked me to do that.
Yeah.
I was so upset because I didn't like the part they wrote, and I was coming in not gonna like it. I still don't really like it.
Yeah, no.
And it wasn't a hit to me. I'm like, it's not a hit. It's not a hit now.
Fuck.
And then I mentioned that on one of my podcasts, and then my friend Graham, the singer, was kind of like, I'm so sorry that you felt that way. I'm like, no.
Oh, you heard the podcast?
Yeah, well, of course. I said,
oh my God.
There. And then I had him on. I said, let's talk. And we had a wonderful time.
Let's talk about it.
We had a fun talk on there, and it was hilarious. But the point was, at the time, I was quite upset because A, I didn't get to put my input, but B, I had been told by the band members that I was going to write a chorus to come along, and then we all bring our ideas together and we would do it. And we had this horrible thing called mass scrutinization where we'd all sit together and listen to it, and like, it's not a good way to do
so
things.
The chorus, you were the singer?
No, I was a guitar player, backup singer.
Oh, okay.
We had a singer.
And the singer already went in and sang it.
Well, he hadn't written it. We didn't know what we were going to do for it. And him and the bass player, God rest his soul, Jason, Jesus, he, and him were working on it. So I think when I was gone, he got a chance to shine a bit in the studio and do things. But at the same time, they went without telling me, and it kind of fucks up the dynamic. And then after that, we had a few miffs here and there for no reason. He just kind of starts making people start to hate each other a little bit. I never hated any of them.
Well,
but look at some of the bands that do.
Speaking of, like tips and like this industry and, what this podcast is all about, I think you just touched on like a major note for me, myself. I find that communication is probably the most important part of a band, in that if there's not healthy communication and there's not a lot of communication, the band won't survive. It won't work out, A band is like having a marriage with multiple people, and it's just as hard, just as much work, and you got to make everyone happy, and everyone has to learn to compromise, and everyone has to learn to be mature. And that's what kept Falset together. Like, we've fucking hated each other in the past, and we all love each other, and we're all brothers to this day.
You need to know your polyamorous rules, what they are.
Yeah.
But in all things considered, like it is hard. And like when you have like the 4 of you, and then say you have someone who leaves, what happens to the splits of the songs you already wrote? Do you just throw the songs away?
We didn't get like all official until this current lineup. So if anyone were to leave at this point, or if anything were to happen, I don't even know what the splits would be, because like what are they going to get when they leave? So
when I did my first solo record called ASK, Aaron Kronis, that's what I did. It was called ASK around 2005 after ThermoCline. I had sideman agreements that Ron and I set up. So I had sideman agreements where if you're in the band and you're not, and you decide that you're going to stick around, I gave them 0.5% of the proceeds of our income.
Okay.
Like, that's a cut to keep them around. But
yeah,
if you leave,
we're talking revenue, right?
Yeah, gross revenue. No, probably net. But if you leave, then that changes to 0.25, because I need to bring someone else in and have to have them something to offer. And so I've actually had an issue where a guy left, and then he really wanted to come back, so he came back at 0.25. I'm like, you lose your percentage. He's like, I don't care, I want to be back. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that he came back. I mean, we had some stupid falling outs, but there really hasn't been any major blowouts with people I've been working with. And a lot of people came back after because they just wanted it a certain way and didn't understand what we were all trying to be as a band. And then I learned that the idea is to really just hire everyone, but really vet the people first.
Exactly, man. Like, if you can't find those 4 or 5 guys that you're all gonna get along together, and you're all like-minded, and you're all after the same goal, you all want the same thing. If you can't find that, the best alternative is to not stop. It's keep going, but you gotta fucking hire guys and vet your guys like hardcore.
I mean, you can hire like an Andrew LaMarche, who's a session player and awesome, and he'll show up, he knows the charts, or like a Randy Cook, guys who just show up, they can play it, but they're not going to be into it because they have 5 other things to do that they're into at the same time, and they're just going to go with what's paying the most and blows up. I mean, they will be cool, but it's like, I found Jack, my current drummer, because he and I, when I got laid off and like from Nortel way back in the day, we were in Ottawa area, we started playing cover bands in Hull, Quebec for like $100 a night at the casino. But you get 4 nights in a row, it's $400. Do that 2 weekends in a row, you got your rent paid. So, and all the free food we could have eaten, and oh my God, that was great. Jesus. But I also learned that I never had a fight with him. We never argued. It was, and he could sing, and I was like, they were holding it up like it was like a bass player, a drummer, and then me. And I came in, they were using an old Atari, so I had them use like an iPod or something. We changed it. So no, I had a mini disc player at the time before iPods came out, and that was how we did our left and right audio split with the click tracks. Because we were playing Pink Floyd cover songs and things like that, and I made it so that we had all the samples from the album on there instead of just these weird MIDI things that we were playing with. And I think we upped the game on that. And that was the beginning of me becoming weird and technically crazy. But in Thermocline, I did a lot of crazy guitar shit where I'd jump in the air and land on a button that would change the guitar sound from a guitar to a gated guitar. Or I would put a expression pedal back that would take away the chorus, but I had weird delays that would come on. And then when I went from heavy to clean, the delay would stay, but that would be the way that the next sound was supposed to be. It was a lot of stuff.
That's amazing.
I really was proud of what I did with that. And I think I'm going to still go back now and take some, I was talking to Graham on the last podcast. I want to take some of those riffs and use them. We have a riff for Sonic Blonde that is absolutely amazing. It's just, I hit the guitar once and it has like 5 delays, like, and the drummer comes in. That was Lamar. She did that. It was awesome. So I told Graham, I'm like, I want to use that riff or something. He's like, do it. I'm like, totally.
So a lot of your, I wanted to ask you this because we were talking about Axe effects earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of your sounds that you used to do with all these pedals, have you replicated that and changed that up and started using Axe effects instead, or are you still like pedals?
I don't have an Axe effects.
Oh, I thought you did.
One, and I watched someone, so I had a guitar tech who
I thought you did for some reason.
No, I recorded with a Kemper. I used to use Mesa Boogie all the time, but I sold all my Mesa Boogies because they're like, it hurts your back to have Mesa Boogie. Like my back hurts from carrying those damn things. They're so heavy, and they have a hum to them and a buzz. You have to use a noise suppressor. It's like, why would you build an amp that requires an NS2 pedal?
Yeah.
I mean, Petrucci was using it. I saw his schematic, and it had all the stuff in it. It had like the NS2 in there and all this other amazing stuff. I'm like, why does it need that? I'm like, because there's a hum that I can't get rid of. My rack forever was buzzing because there's like something metal touching metal. I could never figure it out. Finally, like it took like 10-15 years, but for me, finally the memory cards are tiny. Now you can put like 2-3 gigs on a little micro SD card, and you can put your whole record on that. We used to use 2-inch tapes that you'd have to carry around. Like, it's just mind-boggling how the technology has changed.
That's crazy.
But this computer right here that we're recording on is how I run Ableton. I run all my visuals, and everything are now, this is what I did last rehearsal. We connected this computer by Ethernet cable to a PC that's going to be running Resolume.
Do you worry about your system crashing ever? Because we're looking into auto switchers right now because they're like stupid expensive, but we're like, you know what? I like nightmares, dude, nightmares.
So solid state, you don't want to have a hard drive spinning that can have hardware failure.
Right.
And then you kind of like,
but just like the system overload bullshit.
So you can have 2 running at the same time, and there's methods that I can actually get that hooked up for you. With my techs are really good at that.
Like stuff. The time code stuff?
Yeah, you can link them together, but you don't want to use like Ableton Link actually necessarily. There's certain things you don't want to use, and there's certain things you do want to use. And I can probably, if I can get AJ on here, we'll talk about it.
Great. AJ, where are you at?
Well, he's busy doing some real stuff, but he's thankfully taken the time out of his day yesterday to help me out a lot. I really love that guy. He's just killer. It's nice to have people who understand the software and the routing of audio. Like, we were able to use Zoom to control the laptop to change all the sounds and do everything we need to do. But before that, we were using TeamViewer. And like now we can just do it all through Zoom because of the Zoom audio has been fixed because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It got fixed.
Dude, I swear Zoom like blew up because of the pandemic.
But did you see the Zoom bombing?
Yeah. Also, what the hell happened to Skype? It was like 5 years ago. It was just Skype, and then all of a sudden
by Microsoft.
Okay, so they fucked it up.
Microsoft just has always been a loss leader in many ways. I just bought my first Windows machine recently again, after I used to do Unix system admin, so it's a Unix backend, and then the Mac OS when it went from OS 9 to 10 back in 2000.
Is that like a Linux software?
It started using Linux and backend kernel instead of DOS. So once that happened, I was sold. I'm like, I'd already been working as a Unix system admin, so when Mac was all backend, I know how to do the commands on there a little bit. Not super a lot, but I can type through FTP and things like that. So it's really nice to go Mac. I'm not a Mac tard or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't just have everything Apple, but having a really good MacBook Pro with solid state and a good amount of memory, you can't beat that, and it doesn't crash. Like it really doesn't. Like, it's pretty awesome. But you should have two of them, you know, in case you drop one in the river.
Yeah.
I use Dropbox for most of my files. So if this like crashes and burns, I can literally replace it with another computer. Like,
so you have plan B and plan C.
Yeah. But on stage, you have to have contingencies for if stuff goes bad. So when I was with that other band, Thermocline, I learned every solo with a different broken string. And once our song, I broke a string and I was playing the song Barfly, and I was like, oh my God, that string broke, but I know the solo up here. I learned it on every string broken. It's just kind of funny. Yeah. I don't do that so much now. Oh, man. But that was pretty epic that it actually happened once.
Oh, I can't imagine.
But we also had things like if the drummer has a problem, then we do this. If the bass player has a problem, we do this.
Right.
The singer has a problem, we're used to it. No. If the singer has a problem, then we do this. And if the guitar player has a problem, they all do that. Yeah. And I was the guitar player backup singer for that. So there was like always a contingency kind of ready, and you would rehearse that. And another thing is, don't do anything on stage that you didn't do in rehearsal. Like if there's not like.
Well, speaking of rehearsal, I remember before we had like this big rack with the Behringer X32 and everything running our inner ears, we had like the headphone splitter left and right backtrack, and it was like so sketchy. So because it was so sketchy, we always, when we were practicing at the end of our jam session, we would go through all of the songs that we're going to play live. And I just like randomly kill the backtracks. And I'm like, okay, there's no click, there's no nothing. What do we do? Are we good? And we would practice that with every song, so that just in case our backtracks do cut out, like we're golden.
Well, I'll tell you, with Thermocline, there was many times where we would all be off the click, and the drummer just kills it when we do that. And then we follow him, right? And it would only happen once in a while, but there was many times where like, oh, I had to kill the click, or I had to kill the click, and none of us even knew, you know, because we didn't have the clicks.
I remember there's this one time I was on tour throughout the States with Dream Theater, and I was sitting behind Mangini's kit, and I remember this whole thing going on live, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? I didn't know until after the show. Eric Disrud, the drum tech, told me that like Mangini's ears cut out, and he was playing like 3 or 4 bars without a click. He came, like the click came back in, like they fixed it like quickly, like within 3 or 4 bars. Click came back in, and he was literally on the fucking beat, because his like internal metronome in his head is so like spot on. Like that guy literally has a click in his head. You could be like 120 BPM, and he would sit there for 3 minutes, and you'd be like 120, and he'd be like dut, or whatever the fucking BPM. Awesome. Like he's just like in his head.
I've had, my friend Gab was amazing. He was always like internal metronome guy. Yeah. I've never understood that, but I
need a reference point. Like once it's in my head, I can stay on it. I don't speed it up or slow it down too much.
How do you know?
But like I need that reference.
How do you know you're not speeding up or slowing down?
Well, because
you're so good at being.
Because Mike Mangini taught me this trick. He's like, take your tongue and hit your roof of the mouth. Make it a physical BPM. It's in your head, but make it physical. And when you do that with your tongue and you're hitting the roof of your mouth, it becomes this physical thing, like as if you're hit it here like this.
So I did that with I would go like this. But the problem is I'm a fucking singer.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
Right?
No. I think the only person that needs to do that is the drummer, and then everyone follows the drummer.
So, but I've always been like, once I went solo, like I had the in-ears and no one else did but me and maybe the drummer. Like it was kind of...
Maybe the drummer?
Well, because it depends on if I'm using the automatic drummer system.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess in general, like the drummer would have it too. But where I was going with was, I was actually so good at playing along to my own backtracks. I practiced it a million fucking times, like from the album. Like I knew where the delays for all the vocals were, and I can hear them in the PA.
Oh, so you'd put the delays in the backtracks, so you don't need to actually have the delays live.
Correct.
So how do you do that live now?
They're in the tracks.
So they're still in the backtracks, or
Actually, yeah, they're in the tracks.
Okay, because I was gonna
Absolutely.
say, so what we do now to have all these effects that are on our songs is we actually like arm a track within Logic, and then all of our backtracks and 808s and everything are within the session, and then we actually just like hit play on that song. It goes through the backtracks and shit.
So you better have
And
some good CPU for
That's
that.
the thing. That's why we're like auto switchers. Like, what's our plan B?
So I would mix that all down, and I would not use the CPU for too much. Maybe for like, I use mine to run like keyboards that I'm playing through it, but I would probably just burn it to the track. And if you know the delays at a certain point, it's always the same.
Here's our theory though. Here's our theory on why it won't crash. When you are in Logic and you're just like playing around, you're editing this, you're doing that, system overloads galore, like all the time. But has anyone ever hit record and they're tracking something or singing something and then it system overloads?
Probably.
But like hardly ever. Like that's probably never happened.
Usually it's to do with hard drive space.
Right. I've always found that like after you hit record, your whole computer is like, I will die to make sure that this doesn't stop. Like, you know what I mean? It never, like my session crashes all the time, but as soon as that's recording and it's going through the session recording, I can go through the whole session and it won't crash.
I wouldn't trust that personally, but I mean, maybe you have a great setup. You know?
I don't trust it either, and that's why I really want to get the auto switcher.
I think that's a great idea. They have two computers that run all the effects, but I mean, if you're processing stuff live, I really am against using too much CPU to process anything.
It's too risky.
And that's why I can't do any visuals. Like what we're using is you can connect your time code using Resolume Arena and Resolume Avenue. Like there's a couple different programs that cost more and less, but we're figuring out where I essentially just connect the two computers now with a Ethernet cable, and it sends like, it's like you're just launching clips.
Right, yeah.
But you then have to take all the videos, and this is what I'm learning right now, and I have to like make a bunch of 30-second, but 20 or 30 video clips, put them where I want them to come on, and then I have to take that and convert it to a specific format for Resolume, and then it's just like being a DJ. It's exactly like an EDC kind of setup.
Yeah.
But I happen to put my guitar in there and my vocal in there too.
See, that's another thing. So we've like just so much work goes into just the audio side of things that we haven't even like started thinking about the production and the lighting show.
Secondary computer, PC.
Yeah.
Audio, Mac, using Ableton.
We use Logic, but
and you use the same sound cards, the Apollos. I use an Apollo. It's amazing. I probably need to get the 8 one, the bigger one, if I want to have the 10 inputs for the drummer. He asked for 10 inputs. So that's the idea. Like I have enough inputs, but I wanted it to be, I like to give the front of house like really good separated stuff.
What we plan on doing is bringing out a sound guy on tour, and he mixes off an iPad through our Behringer X32, and then all we send the front of house is left and right. They plug it into their board, and it's literally left and right.
Okay,
and everything is mixed.
I've done that before. The problem is that
the different rooms. Yeah, so that's why we'd bring a sound guy. So he would like walk around the room and like see like the frequencies or whatever the hell they do.
What I think you want to do though is I use a Behringer XR12, and it's got its own little mixing console in it, you know, like, and it's in the back of my rack. So everything comes out of my Ableton setup into the Apollos, and it goes into the Behringer.
Right.
And then from there, I have a left and right balanced left and right to go into my iRig Duo, which connects to my phone, and that's how I stream. But then instead of streaming, I want it to be front of house. I can't just give them left and right. So I have like vocals, guitars, and then my samples are left and right.
So how long does your setup generally take?
Oh, it's done. Like it's as fast as the podcast.
You walk in, like
it's pretty quick.
That's another thing we're working out right now is like, how can we speed this up with 6 guys?
Well, you don't want to do like too much plugging in and unplugging. Leave everything plugged in a way that it can be packed up. And then really all you need to do is have those 4 outs that go to the front. Like my 4 are, like I said, stereo mix, guitar, and vocal. But then I have to have all the drum 10 tracks for the drummer, because that's not part of my guitar setup. I've been using the drummer as I didn't have a drummer for the first little while. I was just using the tracks from the album, and just now I mute those, replace them with a live drummer, and now I'm not going to go back. Like I thought I don't need a drummer.
So like live drummer,
I want a
fucking
live drummer.
Ableton drum, like out of, you know, doing both pros and cons, or is it like fucking
No,
real
it's
drummer all the way?
real
Like,
drummer all the way.
yeah.
With Ableton as well, but I mute the drum tracks that were recorded on the album that are live drums.
Okay.
So like the parts.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, for someone like yourself that's done it both ways, you know, they've done the fucking shows without any live drummer, and then they've done the shows with the live drummer.
It's too much.
I was wondering, like, it's so tight without a real human playing it, but it's like, is that real element worth it? Is it better?
I don't think I'm interesting enough on stage without like 10 go-go dancers around me for people to watch to make that a good show. And then just having the guy behind you doing that, it's just so live show. But most rock bands can't really figure that out.
No, I see. Here's my thing. Like, there's tons of bands out there that like replace all of these sounds with backtracks, but you don't see a lot of bands doing it with drummers. And I think the drummer and the singer are like the two guys that really need to be there at the show.
So I agree with you, but I also stick the guitar into that mix.
Well, like, the reason I say the drummer and the singer is because there's so many genres out there that don't use guitar.
But they always try to use some strange instruments, and that would just be the guitar. And so what I'm trying to do is add keyboards. Like, I play keyboard and I play Ableton Push, and you can do some really cool stuff with the MIDI fighters and all that. So actually I use a MIDI fighter to launch all my clips using something called Setlist that Henry Strange made. Henry, he's rad. And it's nice to just, like, when we shot the video at the Horseshoe, what I did was, instead of having a playback engineer, we were in auto rehearsing. So I played with Jack and I recorded our set, like just the song we were going to do. And then I sent that down to the video guys and said, is there any drift? Or is there any issue with like the video and the audio not being synced up if we're using that click track in that way?
Right.
Because they have to sync it up to the actual album track. So I sent them the track and I sent them our video of us playing live, and they were perfectly matched. So then when we went to the Horseshoe, I was able to just hit play and actually perform the song 10 times in a row live.
Right.
And that worked perfectly with the sync up, because I don't want to be air guitaring and I don't want to be playing without volume. I want to actually hear it. So when you see in my video, when I play the solo for, I'm like doing, I'm actually playing it at the Horseshoe, and I'm hearing it in my in-ears, and they're hearing it at the front of the house.
See, that's really unique, because, you know, this, like, most bands, when they do music videos, they're not hearing shit. Like,
It's all playback.
It's all playback.
So we did no playback.
Except for the drummer, obviously, because they have to hit something.
We did no playback. It was all playing it. But what I was able to do is I could unmute the drums or mute them if we needed them. It didn't really matter. They weren't super concerned because we did a lot of slow-mo drum stuff, and we actually had the drummer leave the kit, and the actress sits on the kit for part of the thing.
I remember that.
And that's like, to do that, like, I wasn't super worried. Like, I knew everyone was like, is she playing the right part? He's trying to counter and making sure she's hitting it right. And I was kind of like, when we watch the final video, you really can't tell anything.
So what's your current plan for all that and releases and stuff? Like, what does the next year look like for you?
Well, I'm just hoping that we can release this record properly and get on a tour and get out and play it for people and have it on the radio. I really want radio in Canada. I'm hoping that Aaron Kronis played it once. Maybe they'll add it on
with
their
SOCAN?
too. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm SOCAN.CA.
Okay, cool.
And I've been with that forever, but it's like, that's just how you get kind of royalties and stuff. You also have to be with, it's really important that you're with SOUNDEXCHANGE. Are you familiar with SOUNDEXCHANGE?
It rings a bell.
I'm sure your legal team has talked to you about
I'm
this,
sure
your letter of direction and where all that's going to go. But the idea is that anything in digital satellite radio and things like that,
okay, we are with them or whatever, because I do remember when we were getting a ton of radio from Give a year ago, they were sending us like all these reports and stuff, and I think that's why SOUNDEXCHANGE sounds familiar, is because they were sending me the SOUNDEXCHANge reports and
where were you getting radio?
So we got Octane, we got like, dude, I don't know, man, like
what is the platform? Is it Spotify?
So New Ocean Media, we got hooked up with them through some of my dad's label people, Thomas in particular from
Excellent.
Inside Out. So he hooked us up with Inside Out, which was a lot of help to us. So they helped us with like Spotify campaigns and radio campaigns. And when we got the radio campaigns, it did really well on radio, and it kept getting played more and more, and then more radios kept picking us up. And that's when I got all these reports in like weekly. So what radios, dude, like I'm literally talking like a list every week.
Were
with
they
like
American
50
stations?
Mostly American, yeah.
That's fantastic.
And then we got on Octane, which was like huge. But I think that's why SOUNDEXCHANGE sounds familiar.
That's how you would have got paid from not the actual terrestrial
So
radio.
that's like a whole other thing for us. So we didn't get paid a cent from all of those radio plays because BMI and SOCAN wasn't set up with us yet. So we're like in the process of getting, because we have the same, we like literally are from the same town, and we have like the same everything, same lawyers, same distribution, like same everything.
Ernie
which
Ball is a
Ernie Ball, like
big sponsor heart of mine. I love them, and it's what we have in common, which is kind of
yeah. So Ron is actually like working on that as we speak, like
Great.
trying to get that all sorted out. But it's just been a hassle, and we're like, okay, at what point are they gonna pay us back to? Because it's been a year now, so we're like, I don't know.
Well, I think that stuff it comes anyway. And one thing I thought of too is like I was worried about working with someone who I didn't get along with, that I have some things written with that I put into SOCAN. I'm like, you want to make sure you don't, and Karen mentioned this on my podcast last episode, you don't want to give your publishing to people too much, because if you have to ask them for permission to put it into something, what if they're no longer around, right? Or gone, or just don't like you?
So we started our own label and our own publishing company, so we can just like own everything and do everything ourselves. But you know, we saw that today. We're working out that deal right now, which I don't know like how that's gonna go, but like it's looking like a great deal for us. But I don't know how that's gonna affect those two entities, you know.
Well, obviously, I think the best thing is to just tell them they can't have any publishing, because they weren't there at the beginning, unless they're giving you a really big advance. That's really big, which they might try to still do. But I think lucky you have a good team.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, at the end of the day, I'd rather get the team and give a little more than not get the team and be greedy.
But it's not greedy to give away, like, that's the thing. You don't think you're being greedy when being super nice, and then you accidentally give away too much publishing, and now you have to ask someone you don't like for permission to do something.
Yeah, no, I won't get into one of those typical band label bullshit.
I've had an issue where someone lied to me about a lot of things. I'm not going to get into too much about it, because who knows if I'll cross paths with them again. But I'm not gonna.
What's the name? No, I'm just kidding.
It's
I'm just kidding.
Beetlejuice. No, I just had someone who basically was telling other artists bullshit, and I didn't call them out. They asked me what I did with him so that wouldn't happen. I said, talk to your lawyer, and he got mad at me for telling them to go to a lawyer. I go, I didn't tell them to go to a lawyer and fuck with your business. I just answered their question, and fuck you for screwing them over and asking them for all that money without having contracts. But my point was, if I have to ever because I've written songs with this person somewhere along the line that they come after me for money, I'm just going to put their stuff in an escrow account. And if they want it, they can sue me. The suggestion I got was not don't pay them. It was put their money in an account. If they come asking for it, then they can have it. But until they ask for it, that's it. And I'm not saying ask for it. I'm saying like come and get it. There's no money. There's nothing to come and get if you're watching this, whoever thinks they are.
You know who you are.
Actually, if anything, they show my music to all the people that they try to work with today to try to rip off. So fuck it. I did that. I did this. Maybe not. Maybe they're done.
Yeah.
But cheers, by the way. Good to
cheers,
have
man.
this little chat.
No, it's been great.
I think we're gonna wrap it up a little bit soon. Unless you have some final advice that you want to give to new artists that may be trying to make it at this time after a pandemic in 2021, and maybe at your age. So what do you have advice for up and comers?
Just
maybe don't have parents that were in Dream Theater.
Right, yeah. So if your dad wasn't in Dream Theater, I'd highly suggest you quit and get the hell out of this industry, because it is harsh. It is rough. There's no money in it. No one's becoming rock stars in today's day and age. So just quit what you're doing. What about for people who already have records and are kind of washed up and are thinking they can still make it? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Like if you're anyone out there, definitely just don't give it your all. And like I said earlier, you can't wait until you're perfect or you're like 10 out of 10. You gotta definitely be good. If you're not good, then don't bother. But if you're good, don't wait till it's perfect. Just start putting shit out there, because that right place, right time instance isn't gonna happen unless you're putting stuff out there. That's like the best advice I can give. And luck is really just a combination of preparation and opportunity. That's the way I look at it.
All right. Well, Chance, great to have you on the podcast. I'm glad we do this in person. This has been the Musicians Insider, and look forward to seeing you all out there and live. We'll see you live. Can't wait to play a live show for y'all.
See you on the road.
Cheers.